Hi guys, it's Shadow. Uploading high-quality audiobooks for you, it's very time-consuming and hard-working process. So please support me so I can keep uploading for you. This is how. You can donate directly through my PayPal or Ko-fi. You will find links in the description. Or you can join our Telegram channel where you will find all paid audiobooks that we provide. Also, you can make requests and you will find proof of payments from our plus 200 paid members. If you can't support me financially, just like and subscribe our videos. Thank you guys, your support means a lot. And as always, enjoy Shadow. Prologue. Tap tap. The steady rhythm of hard shoes striking the floor reverberated through the hallway. My last day, Even though it was my last day as a professor at the academy, I didn't feel a single emotion of agitation. It was as if watching something happening to someone else from a far right. That's exactly how I felt. One might call it an escape from reality, but I genuinely felt nothing other than that level of sincerity. Tap, tap, tap. I walked some more, and at the end of the long hallway, by the entrance, a woman stood waiting for me with her arms crossed. She had blonde hair that was tied at the ends in a ponytail, which rested over her shoulders and coming down to her bosom. Looking closely, it seemed the warm sunlight shining down on her was a play of nature solely to further enhance her already beautiful appearance. Erica Bright. I spat out her name as if vomiting. Erica crossed her arms and put on a twisted smile that was close to ridicule on her lips. How do you feel? I was a bit troubled what kind of answer would satisfy her, but Erica, who still had her arms crossed, spoke again, tapping her fingers on the sleeve of her dress. How do you feel about being fired from the academy? That too because of your fiancé. Yeah, that's it. I felt sorry for not finding the right words to satisfy her. But as the emotions were so worn out, it would be difficult to describe my feelings so clearly other than this. I feel relieved. I smiled slightly and said so. Grind. Erica, twitching her lips, gnashed her teeth and exhaled a hot breath. Oh, you even know how to have fun? Good, smile a little in the future. Maybe then you wouldn't have to be betrayed by a woman like me. With her arms undone and her fists clenched, as she said that and walked past me, the refreshing scent of oranges hit my nose. Get out of my way, and please don't ever come into my life again. I nodded at Erica as she walked away while turning her back on me. He'll try. Tap, tap, tap. Again, with the rhythmic sound of shoes hitting the floor, I left the academy. Perhaps because the vacation was still going on, the usually crowded academy was quite calm. Slowly turning around, I stared blankly at the place I had spent 3 months in. But unlike the calmness I just spoke of, dozens or hundreds of demons were roaming chaotically around the huge academy. They all started waving at me in unison, giggling and laughing. I wanted to eat your eyes. No, I should have made your cursed black eyes mine. Someday I will cut off your limbs and drink your blood like wine. Finally, it's freedom, liberty. So that's how it feels. Kaihi, someday, I will dig out your intestines with my 6 hands, put them in my mouth, and then chew them with 180 teeth. Finally, this place will finally become a dwelling place for ghosts, a resting place for the dead. What a pitiful place. Robin Academy, a famous place where the game retry took place. It was the place where the game's protagonist, other main characters, and supporting cast came together for the first time. Unfortunately, it was built over the cemetery of those who passed away and were buried without a name, and now the same nameless ghosts haunted it. According to what ID heard, such a strange place was chosen to teach students to not be bound by the past and always strive toward the future. TSKKK. My tongue got cold as I recalled how much ID struggled to stop those evil spirits. And the game's main story hadn't even started yet. Whatever. Hearing the demon's curses, I turned around and left. Yeah, with every choice comes responsibility. As soon as I stepped outside the main gate of the academy, I heard the screams and laughter of the evil spirits from behind. As someone who had memories of playing Retry before, I knew how the game would have properly expressed this situation. Event unsuccessful. The restriction on the demons is broken. Chapter 1. The Aftermath begins. Chapter 1. The Aftermath begins. Bump, rattle, bump, rattle. Inside the carriage returning to my hometown, as I gazed upon the uneventful scenery passing by, I looked back on my somewhat regretful life. My current name was Deus Verdi, the second son of a noble family that rules the North Whedon region of the North. However, if you were to ask for my original name, it would be Kim Shin-woo. I was a 25-year-old young man living in South Korea. I graduated from university, completed my military service, and worked for a company, all the while being able to see ghosts. I may have seemed ordinary, but in reality, I was not. Both my maternal and paternal grandmothers were shamans. My grandmother, who was particularly revered and powerful, left me with these words: "Your spiritual power is too strong. If you're not going to walk the shaman's path, it'll ruin you. My mother, who had always been tormented by her own mother's shamanism, naturally didn't believe it, but that was a mistake. Could a boy who had spent his entire life seeing dead people really have normal emotions? Can you be sane when your classmate, who died in an accident the day before, strangles you when you return to school, asking why you're ignoring her? Will you not be traumatized if you see a person who died after falling from his apartment just a few days ago climb up your room's window every night and says he wants to live? Thanks to that, my emotions faded, as if worn out. No, to be precise, my emotions didn't fade because I lived like this. Instead, they became like this in order for me to continue living. Why did someone like me become Deus Verdi, whose name only appeared in the game retry? I didn't know. I thought it was just some ghost's prank as usual, but after living here for about 6 months, it seemed like it wasn't. During those 6 months, a lot happened. I learned aristocratic speech and manners, and even the understanding of magic became essential. Though not everything that Deus had achieved disappeared, the understanding and application of his magic remained within me, so it didn't take long to adapt. If you ask whether Deus was a genius, the answer was absolutely not. He was not dull, but he was not exceptional either. Just he had enough to remain as the second son of a count, even though he was a man with a lot of gossips, the so-called bad deeds. Anyway, I hoped I would become more ordinary now that I had become Deus. I thought my damn eyes that could see ghosts would disappear, but they didn't. Also, funnily enough, the game was set in a medieval fantasy world of swords and magic. The number of ghosts in sight here was far more than in the Republic of Korea. Hehe. The scenery is beautiful, isn't it? For example, I was the only person riding in the personal carriage sent by my family. But before I knew it, a ghost of a lady sitting on the other side was talking to me with a smile. Oh my. Can't you at least answer me? I didn't bother to answer. My grandmother told me countless times that it's not good behavior to talk to the dead. In reality, it was also rare for me to have a good experience after being involved with them. You see me, don't you? The ghost lady suddenly stood up and came towards me. Damn it. Earlier, I could only see her right side from where I sat. But as she approached me, I could see the side which had burns all over it, as if she had been burned alive. I almost closed my eyes at the ghastly sight, but I was able to keep some composure in the end, perhaps because even though it was a gruesome sight even among ghosts, I was already somewhat used to such things. Look at me. I slowly made eye contact with the ghost, who stuck her face close to mine, and her lips stretched wide in delight. I spoke in a low voice so that the coachman my family sent to drive me back home wouldn't hear me. Please have a seat. Oh my. Now you're showing courtesy after ignoring me. I wasn't ignoring you. You weren't ignoring me? I was being considerate. Are you saying you were being considerate? The lady ghost, who sat across from me at my request, tilted her head and asked. I saw her left half again, which was of a beautiful middle-aged woman. But on the opposite side, her eyes were twisted due to burns. Her skin was taut and pus was oozing out of it. I thought you wanted to be invisible. Comment, because I also don't want anyone to see my ugly side. Oh. But you have a beauty that goes beyond that. It's a beauty that doesn't feel ashamed of its weaknesses. A beauty worth being proud of. Are you flirting with me? I'm just saying what I feel. Thank you. The blushing ghost disappeared. It wasn't because she was angry. Anger was not that easy to come by. She probably left because she was satisfied with the conversation. And this was my way of dealing with ghosts. Not hitting and fighting for no reason. I say what they want to hear, I have the conversations they want to have, and give them the comfort they want to feel. Life is really funny. I stared blankly at the spot where the ghost lady previously sat, with my tongue tingling like I was chewing on bitter herbs. I was living with dulled emotions because of them. But here I was, soothing their wounds and empty hearts. Wow. As she looked around her newly acquired laboratory, Professor Purr couldn't help but smile. Why wouldn't she? The spacious laboratory was clean and tidy, with furniture arranged harmoniously. Is it really okay for me to use this place? Professor Purr, who was hired due to a sudden staff vacancy, assumed she would be given a small and cramped room as her workplace. But Erica Bright smiled kindly and nodded her head at Professor Purr's seemingly surprised reaction. Of course, we have to provide this much for Professor Purr, who came to us at such short notice. No, thank you for accepting me as I am. Purr was, in fact, a professor at another academy. She was also quite capable, and when it came to human body magic, she was a genius unrivaled in the current era. The reason why she suddenly came to the Robin Academy was because of a power struggle within the previous academy she worked at. Purr had no interest in the professor politics within the academy, so she hadn't joined any faction as a result and solely focused on her research, but she suddenly found herself unemployed during the critical time when new students were coming in. Feeling frustrated with no place to continue her research and no support, Purr was immediately attracted to Erica Bright's offer and joined the Robin Academy. There may still be belongings left by the previous professor. I'll take care of that. I don't really like it when anyone touches things in my lab. Yes, in that case, you can just fill out the lecture plan and send it to us. Since time is tight, you can refer to what you used at the previous academy. Sure. Thank you. Erica left with a gracious smile. Watching her leave, Per let out a deep sigh. She's really pretty. Erica had well-managed, beautiful blonde hair and a figure no less than that of a model. Her smile was as bright as sunshine and she behaved in restrained manners. On top of that, she even had a considerate personality. Per looked at herself in the full-length mirror in the lab, thinking she wanted to be just like Erica. But what greeted her was a short girl with messy pink hair not properly managed, poking out here and there, and pale skin that lacked sunlight because of always being stuck in the lab with overly plump breasts which distorted her bodice proportions even further. The mirror reflected her tongue sticking out at herself, looking like she had brought in a homeless person from the street. Per had always disliked herself. She didn't have any intention of hiding it. The worst. The worst. Huh? Something was strange. She felt like she heard her own voice again, that too from the mirror. The worst. She tried again just in case. But as expected, it was just her imagination and she didn't hear any sound. Am I not sleeping enough? Per stretched and looked at her dark circles. She decided to just tidy up and get some rest today. And the lecture plan? I could just use the one ID plan to teach in the last academy. At least I'll just need to transfer it to this format. She thought she could finish it quickly and turned her body to tidy up. But, She quickly turned back to the mirror. Something was strange just now? Since she showed her back should have been reflected in the mirror, but strangely, she felt like the mirror was still showing her front. Swoosh, swoosh. She moved around, but the reflection in the mirror remained the same. Did the previous professor cast some kind of magic spell? She heard that the previous professor was dismissed. If a professor who was fired had done such a thing, then their character must have been quite questionable. Per reached out her hand and checked it carefully. It's not magic, is it? There was no magic. Just an ordinary mirror that didn't even have a hint of mana. As Per was pondering this strange situation and crossing her arms, a small girl's voice whispered in her ear. Where did you go? Kaya. Startled, Per quickly turned her head, but she was still alone. What is it? But the moment she wondered what the hell it was, this time, she heard the words clearly. Where are you? This time, a thunderous male shout was heard. Kaya. Yeah. Startled, Per immediately sat down and instinctively unleashed protective magic around her. Where are you? Where are you? Don't throw us away. Don't abandon us. Come here. Come back to me. I was wrong. He'll kill you. No. I was wrong. Come to me. That's enough. Mommy. This is our land. My room. It's my room. You smelly bitch. Go away. Get out of here. Should I eat you? You can't replace him. Just go away. Why did you come here? Why? No matter what magic she used, the voices didn't stop and continued to echo in her head. Excuse me, miss. Per, with tears streaming down her face, slowly raised her head at the voice calling her. A young girl with long black hair that covered the entire floor of the laboratory smiled at her. As the young girl's hair gradually climbed up the wall and reached the ceiling, it began to envelop the entire room. Where did that person go? Thud. But with her eyes suddenly rolling and losing focus, Per fainted with a dull thud sound. TL. If you liked my translation, consider supporting me on buymecoffee.com/george.tl. Chapter 2, Secret of the Central Entrance. Chapter 2, Secret of the Central Entrance. After the maid showed me the room, which was prepared for me to stay in, she left, informing me that she would let me know when the meal was ready. I was not anticipating a warm reception, but I certainly did not anticipate such a frigid response, akin to the bitter cold of the north itself. Did my siblings not know I was coming? Who? The frigid vapor that emanated from my breath dissipated, thanks to the warmth generated by the heating magic in the room. Isn't it the coldest time of year? During February, the icy gusts cannot surmount the towering mountain ranges to the north and become trapped, leading to the notorious cold of North Whedon. And after enduring a month of such bitter cold, in March, the very ground freezes solid, rendering it impossible to sow most crops. Even though I didn't intend to, it seemed I arrived at the worst possible time. Is that the reason why they were not notified of my arrival? No, the room itself was neatly organized and seemed to have been cleaned just a few hours ago, so it didn't seem like they hadn't heard of my coming. With such insignificant thoughts, I walked over to the desk and chair set up to use for office purposes and sat down. The chair comfortably wrapped around me. I closed my eyes for a moment. With my back resting and not thinking about the reason for such treatment, I diverted my attention to something more important to come up with the best plans for the future. The game I transmigrated in was called Retry. Though it might seem like the game was given such a name to encourage people to not give up when they failed and try again, in fact, that name served another purpose related to the ending of the game too. In the first round, the only ending one could achieve in Retry was a bad ending. One had to move on to the second round to see the proper ending. I recalled it being heavily criticized as the game company's gimmick to forcefully increase playtime. The important thing is, I'm in that game. And there were no second chances in life. So, in the end, the only possibility for this world was to experience a bad ending. Not wanting to see such a result, I forcibly headed to Robin Academy, where the game began, but was fired after 3 months of getting the job due to my fiancée, Erica Bright. The plan got messed up a lot. Erica was also an important character in the story's development. She was one of the helpers of the protagonist entering this year. She was portrayed as a good-hearted, caring, loving woman. Such Erica betrayed me. The feeling of disgust she showed me until the very end of the day was more deeply etched in my heart than I thought. The girl I saw in the game didn't have the personality to commit betrayal, so I trusted her wholeheartedly. I can't just think of it as a game. Having learned a bone-crushing lesson, I closed my eyes and calmly locked my fingers together. Even if I can't help the protagonist at the academy by being right next to him, I need to assist him from the outside and make sure to reach the proper ending. Well, if I didn't want to see the end of the continent, I had no choice but to assist the original protagonist. In the game, to avoid such an end, the protagonist needed to try twice. But there was no such thing as a second round in this world. So, I, who knows everything, must act accordingly to prevent this. There are many ways to help from the outside. As the game progressed towards the latter half, many quests and activities took place outside the academy. Even when I first got to know about being fired, I thought it was rather good. It was hard to do anything because of the ghosts at the academy. They were the main problem. The ghosts were the reason I was expelled from the academy. Because I could see ghosts, the actions I took to settle their grievances or keep evil spirits at bay seemed bizarre to others, which was quite logical. As the professors testified that I was a heretic or that I was worshipping the devil, and the complaints from the students grew, I was eventually fired. Couldn't help it. I couldn't stand still when I saw the evil spirits harassing the people in the academy right in front of my eyes. Even though I knew because of those actions I would be seen as an idiot by others, I still tried to justify my actions, thinking the academy shouldn't be ruined before the main character enters the stage. But deep in my heart, I knew my actions were way more selfish and self-serving than that. Seeing students suffering from evil spirits reminded me of the past me, of the traumatized child who, even after living 2 lives, didn't know about the right or wrong or about what it meant to even live anyway. I began fighting against evil spirits in my own way. And the result was this: psychopath, heretic, devil worshipper. I was labeled as such. There was no innovation whatsoever. It was rather heartbreaking and boring because I'd been hearing those names since my school days. Even if the world changes, in the end, people think the same. It's kind of weird when you think about it. Anyway, even if I was fired, the protagonist will enter the academy and do well. There was also a brief episode related to evil spirits, but it was not that important. I felt there were too many ghosts in this world to end that unimportant episode so briefly. But on the contrary, it seemed I was the only one who saw them, so it didn't matter much. I laughed at the thought that I was making a fuss alone for no reason and ended up with this result. The meal is ready. My thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the maid outside the door. I was about to head straight to the dining hall, but the door opened and a maid pushed a food cart through. What does this mean? Bringing food here means eating here separately, not at the dining hall with others. When I asked with a frown, the maid answered with her head bowed in fright. Lord has instructed us to do this. Master Deus is to stay and live in this room from now on. My brother? Both of my parents passed away, and now Darius Verdi, my elder brother, was the head of the household. In addition, from now on, Master Deus is prohibited from having any contact with the outside world. I couldn't help but click my tongue as I watched the maid bow her head again. The rumors have already spread here. Rumors that the second son of the Verdi family, who had been fired from the academy, was a demon worshipper, seemed to have spread as far north as North Whedon. Where is my brother? They'll talk to him in person. Since I couldn't live in such confinement, I wanted to argue right away, but I couldn't. Lord is now dispatching troops because of the immigrants crossing the North Whedon Mountains. As my eyebrows narrowed even more, the maid hurriedly spoke with a flutter and surprise. Master, when you're done eating, you'll clean up the tableware. With that, the maid left. As I took slow steps forward and placed my hand on the doorknob, I felt intense mana film protecting the room. I could truly feel Darius' strong will to keep me locked up here. Did he imprison his ignorant younger brother, who could become a black spot in the history of the Verdi family? Early on, I respected his choice as a family head. In a situation where the entire family could be accused of being demon worshippers, he quickly cut off his younger brother and rectified the situation. But I can't stay still. because I had to lay the groundwork to help the protagonist who will enter the academy this year. Leaving the food behind, I placed my hands behind my back and headed toward the window. Today, the winds of ever-white, blue North Whedon were quite intense. Professor Verdi was dismissed for inappropriate behavior and speech. Because of this, the lectures he was supposed to take have been cancelled. So all those students who applied for his lectures come to the Academic Affairs support team as soon as possible. Huh? The name of the lectures are... Maylin, who was surprised by the broadcast that followed, couldn't help but be startled because it was Professor Verdi who was in charge of both mana harmony and connection between soul and mana lectures that she had applied for. Why? Besides, he was fired? It didn't even seem like a normal dismissal but of a fairly serious level. Damn, I've already made up the timetable, but now what's going on? Maylin was annoyed as she tousled her purple hair. It was only yesterday that she, a sophomore, smiled contentedly at her timetable, which had been meticulously laid out, unlike her freshman year. But why was this happening now? Ugh, so annoying. She had heard strange rumors about Professor Verdi. Like, at dawn, he walks through the academy hallways and talks to someone. He prays by sticking strange pieces of paper to the wall. And he warns the students to be careful because there is something strange attached to their backs. She knew that rumors of heathenism were widespread, but she did not expect that he would be dismissed so suddenly. Really annoying. Continuing to spit out harsh words, Maylin thrust her hand into her robe pocket. Should she think it was rather good because it happened before the semester started? Fortunately, she didn't go back to her hometown on vacation and stayed in her dormitory, so she was able to hear the news quickly. Academic Affairs support team. Knowing that it was on the first floor, Maylin walked down the stairs with a strained stride. Don't let me in any of the remaining lectures for no reason. She decided to first see what the academy would do. But in this case, wouldn't they simply force another lecture at the same time slot? Don't put me in a weird lecture because I don't have one. While praying for that, as Maylin came down the central staircase to the first floor, someone caught her eye. A man stood tall on the central porch. His aura was the embodiment of the word hideous. A dark navy blue energy was circulating around the man, and even the space around him was distorted. Besides, the thing that stood out the most was no right hand. Even without a right hand, the appearance of him wearing a sword on his left waist was very foreign. It would be very inconvenient to draw a sword like that. Instinctively, Maylin realized that he was not an ordinary person. The moment she tried to look around to see if anyone was there. Maylin's right foot touched the hallway on the first floor. The man who was showing his back immediately twisted his body and rushed toward Maylin. Swish. A strong wind blew, and the next instant he stood in front of her. Maylin unknowingly stepped back, falling on her buttocks and as a result sitting on the stairs, removing her foot from the hallway. The man who had already drawn his sword noticed it too. Slowly putting the sword back in the scabbard, he returned to his original position nonchalantly. Maylin was sure if the man was wearing the sword on his right waist instead of his left one and he hadn't needed extra time to pull it out, she would be dead already. But more important than that skeleton? That man's face was of a skeleton with no skin and only flames-like blue orbs were burning in its eye sockets. Undead in the academy? Maylin, who was breaking out in a cold sweat, gradually blushed, realizing that it wasn't just cold sweat she had shed in fear, not even confirming if the skeleton wanted to attack her again. She hid her face with her hands in shame. TL. If you liked my translation, consider supporting me on buymecoffee.com/george.tl. Chapter 3. Hurt Sister. Chapter 3. Hurt Sister. What's going on? It's so crowded. Nurse Karen couldn't help but feel bewildered. Since it was an academy that taught both swordsmanship and magic, there were always bound to be many injuries. Therefore, the infirmary was the largest and most well-equipped place in the academy, always kept up to date with the latest facilities. But even the infirmary was so packed that the academy today was strange beyond belief, especially considering that it was not midterm, but a vacation. The infirmary was so full that she wondered if most of the children remaining in the dormitory had been brought in. What on earth is happening? Furthermore, most of the cases were of fainting with unknown causes, starting with Professor Purr collapsing in her research lab with foam in her mouth. Several students who had been using the training ground had fainted with visible bruises as if they had been hit by someone. Witnesses said that they suddenly shouted something and swung their swords into the air. Not only that, but incidents were occurring indiscriminately in the library, cafeteria, hallway, classrooms, and so on. Students were collapsing everywhere. In particular, the place that was causing the most damage was the central entrance on the first floor. Karen breathed heavily with deep concern. The majority of the students who came down to the first floor today to visit the Academic Affairs support team passed out and had to be brought in. Among the students who visited the Academic Affairs support team, all the children who did not pass out used other stairs. As a result of their investigation, They found that only students who came down the central hallway or used the front door passed out. Should I go and see? Most of the students in the academy right now were those who stayed in the dormitory during vacation because the semester had not started yet. Although it was unlikely that rumors would spread outside the academy, it would be difficult if this situation continues even after the semester begins. She could ask other professors, but this would take time. Karen judged that it was better to go deal with it than to stay there. There was nothing she could do for the students in the infirmary. Anyway, leaving behind her stethoscope and syringe, Karen took her sword, which she had neatly wrapped in bandages. As Karen was a nurse, she considered it her duty to protect her allies. But she didn't think only healing them was enough. To protect my allies, I will have to kill the enemies who want to harm them. It was one of her philosophies. Everyone stay still. If you go outside before I come back, you'll all die. She tied her gray hair together with a hair tie and placed the prescription glasses perched over the bridge of her nose into her front pocket. It's true. There was an undead at the central entrance on the first floor. But look at this. Is there anything here now? Arriving at the main entrance, Karen approached a wistful voice piercing her ears. It was Mei Lin, who was famous for being a badmouth prodigy among the security guards and second years staying there during the vacation. Oh, my goodness. Don't you know that all the children were taken to the infirmary? We know about it, and we've searched this area several times, but we haven't found anything like that. I'm telling you, it was there. Karen's lips twitched as she stared at Mei Lin, who was screaming. Even though she despised rude students, Mei Lin deserved the title of genius as she was the only one to remember what she had seen among those who had descended the central stairway. Then I'll be on my way. After I finished eating, the maid who came to clean up the tableware as if she had been waiting, seemed quite uncomfortable with me. I was sure she must be in a difficult position. Even though I tried to be as polite as possible, I could see in her eyes she was worried that I'd ask for something unreasonable. I was once again left alone in the room. I wasn't lonely or bored. In the first place, I was a person who had a difficult time feeling lonely. Ghosts were everywhere, unconstrained by space. You're quite hated, young master. Can't be helped. A gruff, elderly man stood next to my desk. The neatly organized appearance and clothes that were difficult to distinguish from dead people were impressive. He was a man who served the Verdi family many years ago and was still doing so. I haven't seen him before I left for the academy. But I didn't understand ghosts that well. Either some ghosts like to pop up here and there while others like to hide, so I think it was okay. I want you to help me. Do you need my help? The man's voice trembled for a moment at my words. After crying as if he was moved by something, he slowly put one hand on his heart and bowed deeply. Despite having already become a ghost, there is only one reason why I cannot leave this mansion. It is to repay the debt of the Verdi family. He said, "What is your name?" "My name is Scram, and it is an honor to finally be able to repay the grace I received 150 years ago from Diet Rose Verdi. Even though I intend to resist the words of the current head of household, you, who awakened me, are the true master of Verdi." I paused for a moment and looked at him. His willingness to follow me so easily made me uneasy. I can't act without him anyway. Even if I wanted to jump out of the window, I couldn't even stick my face out of the confinement magic in the name of protection, which was working neatly. Then Scram, "Are you an earthly spirit?" "No, that's not true. I can't go too far, but I can move inside North Whedon." "What about the mountains?" "It's possible." "Good. Then go to the North Whedon Mountains. I heard that the battle with the immigrants is in full swing, so I need to see how it will turn out." "I will serve you, master," Scram said before passing through the wall and disappearing. I sat calmly and tried to decipher the magic that kept me locked up in the whole room. It was then, the sound of heavy footsteps coming from outside disturbed my concentration. After predicting the visitor, I asked the maid to bring a teapot and lit a fire under it to boil water. Click. The door, which hadn't even moved a little until just now no matter how much I turned the doorknob, opened smoothly. "So, are you back after all?" A woman with the same short black hair as me, wearing a light dress shirt and a skirt, spoke. She was Dia Verdi, my sister and the woman who hated me a lot. Dia sneered with her large eyes, crossing her arms. "What was it? I heard you came back after being called a devil worshipper. Didn't you say you would not do that fake thing? Is that all you have to say?" At my words of annoyance, Dia reacted with anger as veins popped on her head like the wind rushing in through the crack of the open window. "I told you not to talk like that, didn't I? Did you hit puberty very late? Where's the old way of talking? I'm sorry if you miss my old tone, but this can't be helped. From now on, since I became Deus, I had no intention of changing my tone." "Oh, but didn't that please you? The way you talked to your younger sister like a sleazy playboy who wanted to have sex, you must have missed that, right?" "That?" Yes, Deus Verdi was a crazy lunatic. Even in this foreign land of North Whedon, he indulged in pleasure and enjoyment. He even made sexual advances toward his own blood-related younger sister, and actually propositioned her for a night together. He was truly a madman among madmen. A debauched man among debauched men. In terms of womanizing, he was a pro, and in terms of liking alcohol, he was a master. But he was not particularly strong or gifted with magical talent. Deus Verdi was just a man who carried the village family on his back and played tiger games in the well. I'm sorry. After all, even though it wasn't me, I couldn't simply ignore his actions as I had possessed the person who did it. After all, I would have to face the consequences if I didn't salvage the situation right away. So, I apologized several times, but Dia just snorted. It's disgusting. Act like a dog you are. You're acting like an aristocrat. I know your nature. Do you know what I was thinking when you said you'd go to Robert Academy, leaving those wares and giving up SX to focus solely on your fiancé? Dia kicked the sofa I was sitting on. As a result, the tea I was brewing for her overflowed and spilled onto the floor. I thought you'd be back in just a month. I know how many times you change women in a week. If it was your fiancé, I thought you could endure it for about a month. You endured for 3 months? But how miserably your life would have felt at that time for you to be called a devil worshipper and to be expelled while being cursed. There's a reason for that. Reason. Yes. There must be a reason why you're making fun of our efforts. I guess you did a good job of fooling your fiancé since the Bright family hasn't requested a breakup yet? Ha. I was starting to get a headache. I knew Deus had hurt her, so I understood her feelings and accepted her complaints. But now she was slowly crossing the line. Stop it. Stop it? If you ask me to stop, I'll. Dark mana spurted out from my fingertips. It gently wrapped around Dia's body and pushed her out the door. You. Fix your way of speaking. I don't want to see you every day laughing like a clown and spewing vulgar jokes. It's disgusting that you're trying to act like a normal person. Just get out of our house. Get out of here. Bang. The door closed, but Dia's voice still racked with rage, echoed like thunder from outside. It's been 6 months since I came to this world. Despite giving my best for 3 months in the mansion and another 3 at the academy, life was still hard. Chapter 4. Predator. Chapter 4. Predator. Chapter 04. Predator. Dia left in anger, leaving behind irregularly sprawled tea on the floor that seemed to be the manifestation of her inner turmoil in the silence that was left behind after Dia's emotional storm. I cleaned up the spilled tea, mechanically. People like her have always been annoying to deal with. I sighed in frustration. Even when I was in school in my past life, it was difficult to deal with people who had intense emotions or large fluctuations in mood. It felt like we were complete opposites. But then again, it was uncomfortable that some of those people instead felt frustrated with me and either left or got angry with me. It's my fault this time, though. No, it's Deus' fault, not mine, but since I was in his body, it can't be helped. Personally, I wanted to build a new relationship with Dia, so I decided to accept her complaints as much as possible, as they seemed pretty reasonable. I even thought of it as relieving her resentment, the same thing I did while dealing with the ghosts. And she's even family. Even with empty words, my relationship with my family in my previous life could not be described as a positive one. If your maternal grandmother was a shaman and your mother despised shamanism more than anything in the world, it would undoubtedly complicate family relationships, wouldn't it? And when it became clear that I could see ghosts and I had to become a shaman in order to survive, my mother's hatred towards shamanism extended to me as well, and she sent me to my grandmother's house. One fortunate thing was that despite my mother's opposition, my father often came to see me. I didn't know the details, but my father worked as a manager in a large factory, and as he had some say in the factory, he often used it to spend time with me. But every time he came to see me, the ghosts that appeared to be employees behind him increased one by one. As a child, I didn't think much and asked about it. But at my question, father ran away from me with a terrified expression on his face. And he stopped visiting me after that. It would be a lie if I said I wasn't lonely. If I didn't admit I always dreamt of having a happy family, I would be fooling myself to the point of being ridiculous. This time, maybe I can do a little better. With that promise, I was done cleaning the spilled tea and sat down again, steeling myself for the task at hand. Though I didn't have to go to work or prepare for any lectures, I was still busy. It's a pity that I couldn't bring my research with me. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have used the tools provided by the Academy. All of the research achievements were due to Academy supplies, so I had no choice but to leave them behind. Even if it costs money, I'll have to use my personal items. Even though I said that I wasn't financially well off either. I resolved to use my own items if I made more money and started to conjure mana in my outstretched palm. The bluish mana, which had been bubbling and popping up like bubbles, quickly turned darker. The now purple mana, which was still turning darker, began to come together one by one, creating a beautiful spherical shape. But despite this magical sight unfolding before me, my eyes were fixated on the white orb inside the sphere that was wrapped around by black mana, like sweet red being pasted around rice cakes. and was the embodiment of the soul. Whose soul was it? Of course, mine. And the reason why this black mana was wrapping around this white orb was to protect my soul. In this world, it was called black magic. On this continent, black magic was frowned upon, and it was a discipline that should not be learned recklessly. Unfortunately, I had no choice but to learn it. Because Deus' body, which was devoid of talent to the point of being pitiful, wouldn't contribute in any way to prevent the catastrophe that would come to this continent. No matter how hard I tried, the main character's colleagues were highly compatible in all other areas. For example, when it comes to magic, I was nowhere near my fiancée, Erica Bright, who had the potential to become an archmage. Even financially, the Verdi family was not very special. Only in the northern periphery do we live with pride, but in the eyes of the central nobility, we were nothing more than goofballs. We were treated well only because we were useful to stop the immigrants from raiding the border. However, I would be able to be of use to the protagonist by using black magic, which was the only way for me to survive in this game. In that regard, I was extremely gifted. To be precise, although Deus Verdi lacked talent and had no relation with black magic, I, the individual named Kim Shinwoo, was brimming with it. Black magic. Black magic involved countless spells that dealt with necromancy and curses, with the aim of inflicting pain, cursing them, or even causing complete destruction. Since it was a study designed solely for selfishness, it was even forbidden by law in the kingdom, but it was possible to trade in secret in the city where Robin Academy was located, making it not difficult to obtain its knowledge. That's how I mastered the basics of necromancy. All people living on this continent accumulated mana in their bodies, even if it was only a small amount. This was because mana was mixed into the atmosphere. If one could accumulate more mana than others and could transform it within themselves with their will, that was what made them a magician. So, it was safe to say that people lived in an environment dominated by mana for their whole lives. Did that mean only one's body was soaked in mana? No. One's soul was soaked in it too, and the necromancy I wanted to use was based on this. Ki. Virtus idiot. You're back. Look at him being cursed by his sister. Why would he not? He's a crazy bastard who wants to FCK his sister. Cook. It's because I showed Dia naked in this bastard's dream. Does it make sense for him to ask his own sister to fuck just because you showed her naked in his dreams? Evil spirits chatted while roaming around noisily. I've always thought about it, but aren't there too many ghosts in this mansion? I didn't know what the Verdi family did, but there were so many ghosts that it could even be called a heaven for black magicians. Who? Before I even showed the signs to do anything, Scram came to me in advance. He left nothing to be desired. There was no need to even give a signal to this useful ghost. Then an ominous-looking obsidian hand stretched out from the black sphere enveloping my soul, resting on the palm of my hand. Snap! It precisely snatched one of the spirits that hovered around me, laughing among themselves. It was the one who claimed that it showed Dia's naked body in the dream. What? Hey, you were caught! The other evil spirits were also surprised, but the expression on the face of the captured one was the most impressive. I clenched my fist as it was held in my palm. Quaduck. And a gruesome scream enveloped the entire mansion. Wasn't it a very good soprano vocalist? Although no one in the living world could hear it, it was a noise that distressed the rest of the dead. Already assembled? Ghosts that had heard screams from the walls, floors, ceilings, and other places had come. Among them, there were also earthly spirits who simply wandered around and could not leave. But unfortunately, most of the ghosts that gathered were evil spirits. Verdi. There were also those who just randomly called out the family name. Can't I just bite your hand once? Too like the tongue. There were also those who ate humans. Seriously. How dare you disturb my rest? Ho, Virtus idiot? Ha! Someone without any dignity of an aristocrat has returned. There were also those who looked like nobles. All spirits who were quietly resting or eagerly waiting for an opportunity gathered in the room. Did Virtus idiot, who only coveted women without talent, come back? Why didn't you tell me? How fun it is to enter this bastard's dream. Kel. Let's have fun again. Deus, let's make him pee while sleeping, perhaps because they were already dead. They had no sense of awareness. Can't they see the soul trapped in the swirling mass of mana now? I am not the Deus you knew. The ghosts blinked at me as if they did not expect me to answer. For the 3 months that I lived with the family, I pretended not to see the ghosts just like in my past life. But now I didn't have to. The soul contains mana. That was the reason why the supernatural phenomenon of ghosts existed, in some cases making the soul, which was supposed to rest eternally when the body died, linger in the world of the living. In other words, with a pop, the evil spirit caged in the black sphere in my palm was absorbed and disappeared. Now, only a sphere made of black mana was swirling on the top of my hand. All of you are just a mass of mana with a will. Ruin away. The quick-witted spirit of an aristocrat immediately turned around, but it was too late. The moment they entered this room, their future already ceased to exist. The dead could only be beautiful when they remained dead. With a sneer, I gave strength to my hands and declared, "The wastes that were thought to be useless have at least one use." The souls began to be sucked into the sphere. They screamed and tried to escape, but they couldn't resist the suction and were sucked in the end. I felt mana rising from my whole body. The dwindling power of ghosts who once dealt with mana as wizards or knights felt as sweet as gourmet food. This was an action that could never be carried out on the Academy's souls. It's not that much, though. Was it because the ghost's mana was mixed with mine? It doesn't matter. There are more. Previously, ID thought that all the evil spirits in the mansion had come, but that wasn't the case. Rather, those who came were nothing more than babbling evil spirits. "You pathetic bastards." Clenching my fists, I declared, "I'll eat you all." Chapter 5. Terrorists? Chapter 5. Terrorists? Chapter 5. Terrorists? I have returned. Unlike the other ghosts, Scram entered the room with careful steps. He looked at me, startled, and then bowed deeply. Young Master seems to have cleaned up the ruffians who were defiling this mansion. I was somewhat surprised by his immediate recognition of what I had done, but I maintained my composure and answered calmly. "I know that there are still many ghosts left in the mansion. I apologize. It's because I didn't maintain it properly. Check the locations and time zones where they often roam around and report it later." How is the situation in the North Whedon Mountains? I had ordered Scram to go check the status of the battle against the immigrants crossing the North Whedon Mountains and report it back to me. So at my question, he gently raised his head and began explaining what he had seen. The front line with the immigrants pushing through the mountains is tense. The head of the family, unlike his initial majestic appearance, has also lost his spirit when he entered an unexpected battle. Darius? Darius Verdi, a warrior called the Guardian of the Northern Mountain Ranges and the Giant of Verdi. It was a little surprising to hear that Darius was pushed back. Of course, this scene didn't appear in the game at all, but I was well aware of his power during my 3 months with the family. At least, he was a great man, capable of fulfilling the role of captain of the knights with ease. That Darius got pushed back? It became clear that it was an interesting yet dangerous situation. If the immigrants crossed the rugged mountain range and entered the kingdom's territory, the position of the Verdi family would be shaken. He was receiving various benefits compared to other counts, but he was unable to fulfill his duties. I thought they were like bandits because they were immigrants, but starting with their armor, their weapons were all sophisticated. Because they're coming from the Clark Republic on the other side. The Clark Republic was adjacent to our Griffin Kingdom. Unlike Griffin, where mana was used as its main resource, Clark Republic was a country that values science and technology as a military dictatorship with a single leader. Although it didn't matter much in the game, Clark's notoriety was mentioned several times by the many characters. A place called the Land of Factories because it treats people like machines. Most likely the incoming immigrants were the ones who had escaped from Clark illegally. The weapon known as a gun appeared to be uncomfortable due to the noise and recoil, but it was superior in power and range. Scram continued his explanation after claiming to have seen something valuable. Right now, Darius has a geographical advantage because his camp is located on the ridgeline, but it is expected to be penetrated soon. Why do you think so? I didn't know how competent the ghost named Scram was, but if he was that confident, he must have his own reasons. Hearing my question, he began to explain as if he had been waiting. There is an extraordinary woman among the immigrants. An extraordinary woman? Her hair, white as snowflakes, was rough as the mane of a galloping wolf, and her crimson-red eyes felt as if they were full of blood. A native of the Clark Republic with white hair and red eyes? My eyes trembled as soon as the image of someone popped into my head. The axe she wields will easily trample Lord Darius' soldiers and invade the territory of the kingdom. Also, since all those who follow her are equally unqualified for being unmanned, even Sir Darius will not be able to block them alone. Scram made a lengthy rant in order to convince me. Perhaps he believed that I would struggle to comprehend how the defenses of the mountain range could be compromised by the actions of a single individual. But it was the other way around. It appears that Finden AI is on her way to the kingdom. Finden AI was the leader of the resistance group Gokilsang, whose aim was fighting to escape from the dictatorship of the Clark Republic. TL. Gokilsang can mean trading either antique goods or scrap goods. Although I was not acquainted with the finer details of her background, it was clear to me that she had relocated to our kingdom with the intention of bolstering her resistance movement after being exiled from her own clan. Why did know it? Because she was the boss of a chapter. If Finden AI is the opponent, I should rather give a round of applause to Darius, who has endured so far. Finden AI was so powerful that she was described as a beast in the skin of a human because she couldn't be stopped once she started. I remembered she was the kind of boss who got stronger as she continues to fight, so I had to drain her health early on with high firepower as quickly as possible. There were countless players asking for tips, saying that the battle with Finden AI was too difficult. She had an attractive appearance, but as a boss with that level of difficulty cut off all of her allure. I can't beat the Finden AI now. It was only natural. Despite the fact that necromancy possessed formidable destructive potential and unparalleled versatility, I was still a novice in the art. I crossed my legs for a moment and began to think. The appearance of an unexpected threat. But, reaching the conclusion that this situation was not entirely devoid of opportunity, a faint, wry smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. A samurai guarding the central entrance. Nurse Karen muttered as she sat down the central staircase, tapping her chin. Her sword was leaning against the stairwell beside her, ready to respond at any time. There were numerous commotions going on inside the academy right now. Among them, the samurai of the central entrance caused the most havoc and made many victims. Although it was not a knight, such a name was given because an eyewitness stated that the attire was similar to that of an Eastern samurai. It's a ghost. Was it some kind of necromancy? Wondering where such a monster could have come from so suddenly, Karen put her hands on her chin and tapped the hallway on the first floor with the soles of her feet. She had heard that it would appear when one came down on the first floor, so she went up and down several times, but it did not come out again. Is there separate time slots for it to appear? Should I come back tomorrow? As Karen was formulating a hypothesis, she was interrupted by a voice. Professor Karen. Heavy and dull footsteps came from the end of the corridor at that time. A gentle and soft voice, a thick belly, and a bear-like body. Dean. He was the dean of this academy, one of those rare people Karen was polite with. She stood up and greeted him briefly. I heard that something strange happened at the main entrance on the first floor. That's right. I'm investigating first, but I don't see many clues. I've heard that there are several incidents happening in other places besides the main entrance. Unfortunately, if an accident occurred only at the central entrance on the first floor, simply close it until the incident is resolved. However, such accidents were occurring in various places throughout the academy at the same time. The dean looked around the corridor for a moment, then put his hands behind his back and spoke quietly. I don't think this is a sudden phenomenon. Karen had the same thought, so she kept her mouth shut. And that the dean declared, slightly enraged. This is a terrorist act. March will arrive soon. When the vacation was over, current students and new students would revitalize the academy once again. But before that, accidents like this began to happen one after the other, so the dean wanted to find the main culprit behind it as quickly as possible. I understand that Professor Karen has toured many countries while working as a mercenary in the past. That's right. Karen didn't really want to talk about the old days. When she answered awkwardly, the dean asked in a voice full of grave anger. So I believe you've had a lot of experiences. Can you take charge of this situation and solve it? Of course, I will do my best to cooperate, and I will give Professor Karen my full support. How about, instead of asking me, make an official request to someone like the royal family? The Griffin Kingdom enthusiastically supported Robin Academy as one of its educational institutions. They wouldn't stay still if they knew what was going on. However, the dean shook his head. His chin, which sat snugly, was impressive. No, if the academy doesn't properly resolve this issue, the royal family will doubt our abilities. Because there haven't been any achievements lately from our side. Karen swallowed bitterly, sensing some sort of political reason behind his answer. What can I do? I'll do it if you tell me to. I'm a salaried person. Grumbling to herself, Karen lowered her head. I will do my best to solve it. Please. We must find the culprit of this attack before the freshmen and current students return next month. Chapter 6. Wolf Crossing the Northern Mountains. Chapter 6. Wolf Crossing the Northern Mountains. Are you implying that we should wait? At my words, Scram let out a puzzled voice. Looking at him, who acted as if I hadn't thought at all, I calmly responded. If the leader of the immigrants is who I think she is, Darius won't be able to hold out for long. She will descend from the ridge and initiate another siege in downtown North Wheaton. But if that happens, the safety of the citizens, they cannot afford to be concerned about that. If we failed to keep the immigrants out, our entire family would be destabilized. Although it was a family that had survived through the use of force, this was a precarious situation, and we would need to resort to sucking the blood of the citizens to survive. He will return soon. The animal that he thought was a weakling would turn out to be a wolf, and he will have no choice but to fight it. I only saw him for a short period of 3 months, but the Darius I saw was not a very great general. He might be a skilled warrior, but he lacked the qualities of a great commander. And this shortcoming would prevent him from defeating anyone more powerful than himself. I'm sure he will return after defeat. Until then, I just had to wait quietly and prepare negotiation cards. Raise your shields. If you give up now, the next attack will be in North Wheaton City. Are the warriors of the north so foolish that they cannot even protect their own families? Darius' angry cry burst out. If it had been normal times, the soldiers would have been terrified and followed his orders quickly. But now, they didn't even have the strength to do it. They made full use of the geographical advantage of the mountain ridge. Even if there was a slight difference in weapon level due to technical skill differences, the magic on their side was unaffected. The road from the village to the ridge was well constructed on their side, so supplies were easy to come by. There was no shortage of personnel, and the soldiers had not neglected training. The northern giants who live on the outskirts have always trained their soldiers. The enemy couldn't even be compared in terms of morale, because for the soldiers, if they were pierced here, the hometown where their family lived was right behind. So they were doing their best to hold them back with their lives. Suddenly, a thick, pungent smell of smoke filled the air. It was not the smell of gunpowder used by the immigrants, but the strong smell of tobacco. A woman who looked like a wolf was blowing cigarette smoke as if it were as easy as breathing. Her eyes were stained with bright red light from the number of deaths she had witnessed. Thud. As if chopping wood, the raised axe precisely split North Whedon's soldier in half. He slid down the mountainside, completely unaware that he was dead. Again, she is coming. The white wolf is running. Kuduk. He'll take care of it. Darius slammed forward, biting his teeth so hard that his veins popped out. He couldn't bear being humiliated by that woman any longer. Wherever she passed by, fluttering the hems of her coat, only the strong scent of tobacco would linger. As she climbed the mountain, she extinguished all the fires of life. As Darius ran downhill, mana flowed through his toes. Every time he took a heavy step forward, the surrounding trees shook as if screaming, shaking off the accumulated snow. You've finally arrived. Count Darius. Don't you dare say my name so casually, you vulgar human. Darius' sword and Finden Ace axe clashed. In terms of strength, Darius had the upper hand, so he thought he could kill Finden AI with a single strike, and continued to push. Kung, just relying on strength, aren't you? I have been fighting for years. It wasn't long before you became the head of household, right? I'm disappointed. You're reckless and lacking in experience. Finden AI, who raised her axe to the side, veering away from the sword, deflected Darius' sword while her body glided through the snow. Look at how much blood is rushing to your head. You'll be left behind in the Clark Republic if you fight like that. Don't talk about age and blood recklessly. Just look at it, you look like 20 yourselves. To be exact, I'm 27 and a half for a little while. Finden AI, tapping on the shoulder with the back of her axe, sneered while spitting out her tobacco smoke. So I'm sure I'm much more experienced than you, right? Nonsense. I've been following my father and protecting this mountain range since I was 10 years old and could hold a sword. I dare not compare myself to immigrants like you. Darius was bristling, ready to split Finden AI in two for disrespecting him. The snow piled up on his feet and began to fly away violently. Yes, that's right. Since you were only 10 years old, you must have been hiding in a safe post on the mountain ridge and killing my compatriots who came in over to live. You are just a young modder acting tough. That's not battle. That's called hunting. How's that different from catching rabbits or foxes? You're a hunter, not a warrior. I can't stand any more insults. Insult? The insult is what you're doing. You lukewarm bastard who mistakes a massacre for a battle. Katui. Finden AI spat the tobacco out of her mouth onto the floor. Her crimson eyes were filled with intense anger. I've been desperately running around since I was born, and I've been killing people to survive since I was 3 years old. Crack. Cook. Darius' eyes failed to follow the flying axe. The axe slashed into Darius' right shoulder, shattering his shoulder pad. In an instant, the menacingly rising mana was disrupted and vanished into the cold. Meanwhile, Finden Ace's feet had already reached in front of Darius' suffering eyes. Bam! Following the initial attack, a kick flew right in and hit Darius' face accurately. Darius' body began to sway and fall backward. Finden AI, on the other hand, did not stop there. She turned around in the air after the first hit and landed a back kick into his chest. Thud! With the sound of his ribs breaking through his armor, Darius collapsed onto the cold snow. Damn it! He couldn't even scream properly due to the pain that wasn't allowing him to breathe properly. It fits you perfectly. Finden AI looked down at Darius and drew her axe from his shoulder. Awea. He screamed as if begging, but Finden AI shook her head and wiped the blood from the axe. The other immigrant who followed her held a hunting rifle and aimed it at Darius. It's okay, let him go. What? Leader, what's this? Mercy? This kind of immigrant shows mercy to me? Those who lived like slaves in the Republic of Clark were showing mercy to me. The Count of Griffin? Darius felt as if his intestines were twisting. But Finden AI had no intention of showing mercy. I have to keep him alive so that another competent guy won't take the Count position. Darius' eyes were swollen with blood. The blood seemed to rush to his head, but instead, the bleeding from his shoulder worsened. Can you actually report a breach, Count? If you do so, at the very moment, won't your family lose all the privileges it has enjoyed so far? Kuruk, they'll spare you. Consider your options carefully. Whether you ask for support for the kingdom or acquiesce for the sake of the family. Darius could only tremble in shame as he watched Finden Ace laughing back, who marched towards the guard post. The sky was still bright white, even without a single cloud. Only the thick tobacco scent remained on Darius' side. 2 days later, Lord Darius returned to the mansion while lying on a sick bed. His soldiers trudged with heavy steps, bowed their heads, and covered their faces with their helmets, just like the losers. You indeed have great insight. Scram exclaimed in awe that my judgment was correct, but it came so naturally to me that I was unimpressed. It was chaos inside the mansion, and the citizens of North Whedon, seeing the return of the defeated soldiers, trembled in fear that the immigrants were coming to plunder, and demanded answers from our family. They paid taxes for times like this, so it was only a natural reaction. When I looked out the window, I saw the city of North Whedon. There was a lot of commotion inside, but I didn't see a single carriage leave the city. No one is leaving, because the Northerners have had a strong attachment to their homeland since ancient times. Like icicles frozen on the ground, they did not think of leaving even in the face of an immigrant invasion, preferring to stay here. As I was thinking about it, urgent footsteps could be heard outside. I looked out the window and put on my coat. It's time to go. Scram bowed his head deeply to see me off. The door, which had remained shut except for mealtimes in the last few days, stood wide open, as if it urging me to come forward. Chapter 7, 1 hour. Chapter 7, 1 hour. What? The head of the family lost? Dia Verdi, who was engrossed in a book, stood up in surprise. The chair fell backward, making a loud noise, but she didn't have time to worry about it. The sudden sad news brought by the maid was shocking. Darius Verdi, the pride of the Verdi family and the last guardian, had fallen. It was a major crisis for the Verdi family, and the most urgent emergency signal in all of North Whedon was ringing because of it. The Lord is on his way right now. I called the doctor immediately because the wound on his shoulder is serious. Make the room warm and bring all the bandages and medicine. Don't forget to make some warm stew. Yes, I understand. And the maid, who was about to move immediately after receiving the order, paused and hesitated as she tried to turn her steps back at Dia's word. Dia closed her open mouth and bit her lips. No, let's continue as planned. If we proceed with treatment using magic, his body will become severely fatigued. So we must create an environment in which he can rest as comfortably as possible. I understand. The peaceful daily life of the Verdi family was abruptly disrupted. Her mind flashed back to the image of the head of the household sneering at the news that immigrants were approaching over the mountain range. That's why I told him not to let his guard down. At the very least, he should have ascertained our adversary's strength before proceeding. If he just makes casual preparations as usual, this kind of thing was bound to happen. Anyway, all the men in this family are like that and I hate it. Darius Verdi, who had come with an injury, and Deus Verdi, who pretended to be normal, both of them were not to Dia's liking. Dia put on the coat that was hanging on the coat hanger and stepped outside. Her footsteps grew louder, indicating the gravity of the situation. She was heading to the first floor to meet Darius, who was being brought in. As she walked down the hallway, she noticed a tightly locked room. It was Deus Verdi's room. Dia knew that the door would never open as she had locked it with magic, just as Darius had instructed. For a moment, Dia considered asking for help from Deus, the second son. Right now, she was in a situation where she really could use some help. But no, what would I ask from an Ashel? Thinking so, Dia was able to pass Deus' room without any hesitation. After waiting for about 30 minutes at the entrance to the first floor, she saw soldiers riding a horse and driving a cart in a hurry from afar. They looked dirty and unkempt, and their dark circles and drooping eyes showed they hadn't slept properly. Dia felt guilty for them. To Dia, the Lord. I know. Butler, hurry up and bring the Lord inside. The servants, who were waiting with Dia, rushed to the cart and carried Darius into the mansion. Dia approached the soldiers who were staring blankly and patted them on the shoulder. Come inside. We have prepared meals for you. Eat well and rest your bodies. Cook. Ugh, sorry. If only we had worked harder. The soldiers' pent-up emotions erupted in response to Dia's warm words. It's all right. It's all right. Come on in. You've worked hard enough, so I'll take responsibility for it. Dia had made a firm decision and provided the soldiers, who had brought Darius, food and a place to rest before heading to Darius' room. The warm room was filled with medicinal herbs, and the mansion's servants expressed their concern and willingness to do anything they could to help. All of these people were from the north, and they had families waiting for them outside the mansion in downtown North Whedon. The idea of immigrants taking over their land was unbearable, and they all hoped that the powerful warrior Darius would protect them. "Doctor, how is the Lord doing?" Dia asked the doctor with a tense voice. "It seems that he will be unable to stand on the front lines for the time being." The doctor replied with a gloomy tone. This diagnosis hit everyone in the room like a bolt of lightning. "No, that's nonsense. Given the Lord's current state, it's just a stab wound on the shoulder." Dia exclaimed angrily. Unfortunately, the opponent was not an ordinary person. The unique mana that remains inside continues to damage the wounds. What? It was the first time she heard about it. The opponent's mana was still inside the family head's body, causing damage? I've heard that there are such people in the Republic of Clark. They are masters of battle who neutralize the enemy with a single blow. Putting on his glasses, the doctor continued to speak, expressing his devastation. It looks like he was attacked by one of those people. As long as that person doesn't collect mana, or is threatened to the point where that person can't use mana, the Lord won't get healed no matter how much treatment he receives. Dia let out a deep sigh. After securing the mountain ridge, the immigrants would soon attack the northern mountain path to breach the defenses there. To enter the kingdom from the north, food or supplies were essential, so they would probably resort to plundering North Whedon. If only she had a little more time, she might have made a better decision. But the situation was critical, and there was no time to hesitate. "I will ask for support from other margraves and surrounding nobles." Everyone in the room understood the gravity of her decision. She was giving up her pride as a member of the Count family and humbled herself to ask for help from nearby nobles in order to protect North Whedon. It was uncertain how the Verdi family would be affected by this. They might lose their position as the Count, being deemed incompetent. But she had to protect her people first. Gather all available soldiers and hold out as long as possible until the support arrives. "I will take command." Dia was about to step forward with such determination. "No way." Darius, who seemed to have lost his mind, jumped up and shouted. There was a kind of madness in the swollen eyes. "In the history of our Verdi family, we never begged anyone. We always ruled the North Whedon with pride no matter what. Are you trying to cut off the family's roots?" Dia clenched her teeth, holding back the words she wanted to say. "Then what do you suggest? We can't just sit here. Leave it alone." What? It was shocking. It was a shock more powerful than when she heard the sad news that Darius was defeated. "Just leave it be. It's enough to say that they didn't cross our mountain range." Are you kidding me? "Tell the people of North Whedon to keep their mouths closed, and we will compensate them later for the immigrants' plundering acts. Just shut up." Dia's voice resonated strongly. Darius tried to reprimand his sister for saying something she shouldn't have said to him, but Dia spoke faster. "Abandoning people because of that history? Again? You're going to repeat Verdi's disgrace once more? Stop talking, Dia. If you didn't want to hear it, you shouldn't have come here like a beaten dog. How many times have I said that? Don't be careless. Keep your guard up and prepare thoroughly. They were out of our league. We couldn't have stopped them anyway. Is it comfortable to console yourself in this manner? But you, brother, are not in that position. You're in a position where you have to take responsibility." They were going back and forth with each other. Meanwhile, the servants and the doctor stood motionless, unsure of what to do. "All right, I'll go and stop them. I will immediately request support from Count Tolkien and Count Heramius. I will protect North Whedon." And at that movement, the image of a man appeared in Dia's mind. Another one of her brothers. "Call that useless younger brother of mine here too. Even if he's just a bug, he's still a Verdi, and he has to take responsibility together." Even though it was thanks to personal connections, he had been at the Robin Academy for 3 months as a professor. Even if he hasn't been able to give a lecture, he must be able to at least cast a fireball. After waiting for a while, the door burst open, and the air inside the room changed rapidly. Deus Verdi stepped inside the room without hesitation, with his long, downcast black hair, fully buttoned coat, and confident shoulders, to the point where she wondered if she had ever felt this way around this man before. Just by his presence, he brought a cool yet ominous cold to the warmly heated room. Just as frowning Dia was about to explain the situation, Deus Verdi, with a cold expression, raised his hand and declared, "1 hour, give me an hour and I'll take care of everything." He said as if he was a devil promising to grant a wish. Chapter 8. 5 minutes a day. Chapter 8. 5 minutes a day. Chapter 8. 5 minutes a day. The servants and Dia were staring at me blankly. Their expressions had frozen as if time had stopped. The one who broke the silence was, of course, Dia. "What? You said you will solve it in an hour?" Dia said and laughed sarcastically, as if understood something, and continued her word with emphasis. "Do you even know what the situation is right now? Instead of making jokes, why don't you properly understand the situation?" The immigrants crossing North Whedon must be occupying our outpost on the ridge right now. Dia frowned at me and glared at the other servants as I cut her off and spoke. All of them shook their heads in unison, looking at each other with questions about who gave me the information. Of course, it was something that another one of Virtus' invisible servants had told me. Now that ID gained momentum, it was time to strike. I recited the information Scram had given me. There are fewer of them than expected. However, the problem was that they brought high-quality weapons and are marching without avoiding combat. Dia turned her gaze toward the bed. Darius' face, lost in thought, told her that I was not just talking nonsense. We misunderstood their intentions. The usual immigrants flee to survive, but not this time. It was different this time. That woman, Finden AI, wasn't running away. It was true that she was trying to cross the mountain range and hide in the Kingdom of Griffin, but unlike the other immigrants, she had the audacity to enter through the front gate instead of hiding. The fact that these immigrants have experienced a lot of battles might be a problem, but the main issue will be their leader. A white wolf with bloodshot eyes. Clicked my tongue. As soon as I mentioned Finden AI, Darius appeared to be in physical discomfort and moved restlessly in bed, causing blood to flow from his wounds. She is not an immigrant who fled. She is the resistance that confronts the cruel and notorious Clark Republic Hedon. How do you know that? There is a way. Normally, I would have answered bluntly that I didn't know. But I wanted to treat Dia as nicely as possible. I wanted to be as nice to her as possible because I knew how it feels to be hurt by your family. Of course, my answer wasn't exactly smooth, and Dia frowned. I can't treat them like ghosts. They didn't need a reason. They just liked to be told what they wanted to hear. They didn't understand cause and effect the way Dia does. What does it matter if they're dead? Give me a bottle of warm wine and a loaf of rice cake, and a luxurious cloth to wrap it in. If you wait for just an hour, I will stop the immigrants from looting North Whedon. Returning to the original topic, even while trapped, I showed the ability to understand the enemy's strength, and I appealed as much as I could. The remaining decision was now up to Darius and Dia. Nonsense. And, of course, Dia refused. How can I believe that? You alone will stop the immigrants who even defeated the family head. With wine and rice cakes? Are you kidding me? Are you going to drink and have fun with them? You must have learned how to act cool somewhere. With a frown, Dia tried to ask the surrounding nobles for support again. However, lying on his sickbed, Darius grabbed Dia's wrist. As the head of the family, I command you. Go and take responsibility for your words. Darius, have you gone insane? Dia screamed in agony as she shook off his hand. Until her throat cracked, she spat out the words at this foolishness. Who cares about the title of Count? Are we truly willing to sacrifice those who believe in us and refuse to leave their homeland? The fact that he talks like that means there's a way. Do you have no idea who he is? He's Darius. He's a rogue who drinks with women every day and comes in the morning and goes out at night. Right now, you're not believing in Darius. You're just relying on a miracle that might happen. What's the difference between kneeling and seeking God when immigrants with swords and spears stand at the door? Dia's eyes were thick and moist, and even I could see how much she cared about North Whedon and its people. So I turned around and went to the door. I will leave in 10 minutes. Be prepared. I only left the servants with a short order. Hey. I heard Dia's screams from behind me. What I needed to do now was not plead with her to trust me. Darius had been too much of a scumbag for that. It was because there was no credibility in humans to simply ask for trust in words. It had to be shown in action. And now was the time to prove it with results. 10 minutes later, I made eye contact with the servants waiting at the entrance of the mansion. One of the maids carefully held a bundle wrapped in high-quality cloth. I received it and straightened my body. Because I had to climb a mountain, I wore a thick coat, and in my hand was a staff that was more than enough for my current magical ability. I need to climb a mountain, so a staff would be useful. I was more likely to use it as a walking stick rather than to use it for magic. As I tapped the ground with the end of the staff, Dia approached me from behind with a resentful look in her eyes. Judging by her reddened eyes, she must have cried quite a bit before this. Now she was just breathing heavily and looked tired. I took a step closer to her and met her gaze. If I don't come back within an hour, contact Tolkien and Count Heramius for support. You bastard. If you can't do it, just say so. Do you know what will happen if the request is an hour late? I will succeed. I was confident. However, my answer didn't seem to satisfy her as she looked very anxious. How should I handle this relationship? Suddenly, a thought crossed my mind. I asked Dia, looking down at her. If I solve this problem and come back. It might sound a little coercive, but creating an opportunity was more important. 5 minutes a day. So I smiled lightly. It wasn't easy to smile, but I had done it once when I said goodbye to my fiancée, so I was satisfied with it. Just give me 5 minutes a day. What? Dia looked at me with a puzzled expression. wondering if she had heard me correctly. Taking advantage of the moment, I reached out and carefully wiped away the tears that had gathered in the corner of her eyes. If you give me just that much, it'll be enough of a reward for me. That was all I had to say. Turning my body towards the outside, I received the escort of the servants who were bowing deeply to me, a poor and unqualified person. I set off towards North Whedon, where the February snow had just begun to fall with the strong wind. It was a climb to the North Whedon Mountains. Although I knew the path was well made, I climbed the rugged mountains instead of walking along the path. With each step, the tree branches pierced and entered my body, and the snow piled up softly reached my knees. It was not a good look for someone who's supposed to be so confident. "Are you okay?" Scram, the ghost butler who followed me, asked. Since I heard that he could move up to the mountains, he followed me. "Yes, I'm fine. At least I could do basic magic, so I wasn't cold because I was using magic to keep my body warm. I could feel the burning mana throughout my body. In fact, it was magic that was not used very often due to its extremely low efficiency. But it was impressive to see a fireball floating around. "Do you plan to ambush?" "No, I can't stop the immigrants with my skills." "What? What do you mean by that?" Scram was taken aback by my words, which were different from how I appeared at the mansion. But I calmly continued climbing the mountain. Right now, I was climbing the mountains, and I could soon arrive at the outpost occupied by the immigrants. But they were not my goal. Creak. My body was throbbing. The atmosphere shook, and I could feel the surrounding landscape distorting. The ghost, Scram, must have felt it too and looked around in amazement, but I reached out and stopped him. "Go back to the mansion, Scram." "What? But the person I will meet in the future will not want you here." Scram had a puzzled expression, but I spoke firmly, without any intention of revoking my order. He bowed deeply and disappeared. "I wish you a safe return, master." His voice faded away. Then, creak, the thunderous sound hit my ears. Suddenly, I found myself frowning, but my lips curled up slightly. "I'm glad you remembered me." Beyond the mountain ridge, a four-legged white tiger with sapphire-like blue eyes, different from Fidney's bloodshot eyes, with black stripes on white, long fangs, was looking down at me haughtily. I immediately used magic to clear the snow around me and knelt down, spreading out the fine cloth ID brought with me and the wine and rice cakes. I was glad Finden AI hadn't come down from the mountain yet. She was not just a soldier, but a resistance fellow with the name of a scrap metal dealer, so I was grateful for her judgment to try to recover from her fatigue. Thanks to her still being on the mountain, I could borrow his power, to the extent that the count who protected the northern lands, the Verdi family, would not even dare to hold a business. A true lord of the mountain who had lived here for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. I bowed my head toward him. "I humbly greet the mountain lord. TL. Expect a mass release on Monday. Chapter 9 Mountain Lord. Chapter 9 Mountain Lord. Sangun, the Lord of the Mountain." Although this word was once used to refer to tiger, it had completely disappeared from a society that had become stiff due to the development of technology and industry in the 21st century. However, the Sangun still exists. Even my shaman grandmother told me that she once performed an offering ritual for Sangun of Bekdusan Mountain. Of course, they were not real animals. They were spirits who borrowed the appearance of a tiger and were guardian deities. And my grandmother, who used to talk about various things with me in her old age, told me about how to hold the ritual and the food that Sangun likes. "Have you come to me again, boy?" My age was 28 years old, far too old to be called a boy. But there was nothing else to say if Sangun, who had lived for thousands of years, addressed me as a boy. "I am Deus Verdi. After 3 months of staying away from home, I have come to pay my respects," accompanied by the warm wine and rice cake that Sangun likes. The warm wine given by the maid had already cooled down in the cold of the North Whedon Mountains, but the yellowish manna gently wrapped around the bottle and warmed it up again. The first time I climbed the mountain and met Sangun was about a month after I became Deus Verdi. At that time, I tried to run away. Learning magic was difficult, studying etiquette was difficult, and Deus had too much trash to take care of. But among them, the most troublesome were the evil spirits in the mansion. For some reason, the number of evil spirits inhabiting Vertus Mansion was quite high. That was when I met the Sangun. Sangun, who tore apart the evil spirits chasing me, and pitted me. I bought some wine and rice cake that Sangun might like. "Please enjoy if it suits your taste." Sangun's mouth opened and a blue-colored spirit body emerged, wrapping itself around the wine and rice cake. Then the offerings disappeared naturally as if they were absorbed into the spiritual body. Although it didn't show in his expression, the oppressive feeling that had been pressing down seemed to disappear, so he seemed to be satisfied. "This is the first time. I must not interrupt recklessly." I listened to him with a nod of my head, leisurely taking in his words that flowed smoothly. "For thousands of years, I have only been a presence of fear. It's the first time a human has come to me like this. That is because Sandgun saved me. Comment. An awkward silence hung between the Sandgun and me. Did he not actually intend to protect me 5 months ago? Of course, I knew that. Why would the Sandgun bother to save me, a mere human being chased by evil spirits? He only tore them apart because the evil spirits invading his mountain didn't please him. He had no intention of saving me. But why does that matter? No, it didn't matter. I would just use this relationship to my advantage. Even if he didn't have that intention, I would force a connection between us. That will be like a leash. I know you didn't come to find me just for a simple greeting. A solid voice resonated. He was getting to the point. The truth is, I was afraid Sandgun would be feeling uncomfortable. So I came to visit in advance. The ignorant immigrants are rampaging on my mountain. However, we do not have the strength to defend this mountain. Sandgun's blue eyes sparkled. As if hit by a waterfall in the middle of winter, my body stiffened and the pressure pressed down on my entire body. So, have you come to ask for my help? How dare you? Oh, Sandgun. I took a deep breath and slowly rose from my seat, meeting his gaze. I knelt down to set the table for negotiation, offering my riches. Then, I sat on the other side, certain that I had what he desired. Because I had no intention of giving the initiative in negotiations to a tiger sleeping alone in the mountains, I raised my hand and pointed to the east beyond. The desert to the east, named Sahar, has now become a human outpost. This time, to the opposite. I pointed toward the west. To the west, in the waters of Parlaire, I hear they have built underwater tunnels and undersea fish farms. Finally, I stretched out my hand and pointed to the sky. Beyond the mountains, the Clark Republic has recently developed a flying tool called the glider. What do you mean? I carefully placed my hand on my chest, apologizing. 1,000 years ago, the Sahar Desert was a cursed land for humans. It was said that 1 day took away flesh, 2 days blood, and 3 days life. However, today, humans are planting potatoes there. I've heard that the potatoes that have adapted to the climate there don't rot easily and are hard, making them easy to store, and the number of recipes has increased. Sandgun's eyes narrowed as if he understood what I was saying. He looked like he was about to tear me apart at any moment, so I used the staff to paw at the ground. I would have been on my knees if it hadn't been for it. I couldn't show it though. I continued my speech in the same tone and without shaking. The notorious Leviathan and Kraken in the waters of Parlaire. Humans, on the other hand, have driven them out and coveted their underwater resources. It is said that a handful of salt there is worth a fortune in gold. Sandgun, just 1,000 years ago, did you think humans could fly? Uncivilized humans who had to diligently walk for a month to reach a distance that you, Sandgun, could reach in a single leap. His white breath obscured my vision. But thanks to this, Sandgun's appearance was blurred, which helped me endure more. Sandgun, don't you find it quite interesting? How the uncivilized humans are taking away the homes of spiritual beings one by one. Is this a threat? Thud. Sandgun took a step forward. The white tiger that was standing on the mountain ridge came closer, growling and baring his teeth right in front of me, despite the snowstorm. For a split second, I couldn't even blink. I could tear you apart with just my breath. Bring 100 men, and with a flick of my tail, they will no longer be alive. Bring 1,000 men, and my claws will tear them apart one by one. Bring 10,000 men. My teeth are eternal, they will not rust. They will not break. It was a bold declaration. In reality, it would be more than possible if they were inside the mountain range. On the first day, I will bring 10,000 men. However, I did not back down. On the second day, another 10,000 will come. On the third and fourth day, 20,000 will come. And they will all perish at the feet of the mountain. Carcasses will pile up on top of one another, and the mountain will longer be covered with trees, but with bones and flesh. The reason why the Sandgun was strong was because he was on the mountain. But what if that mountain becomes dirty? 5 days. I extend my finger and declare firmly. In just 5 days, Sandgun will fall. Sandgun, my outstretched hand came down naturally. As if asking for a handshake, I reached out to Sandgun. I, Deus Verdi, the second son of the Verdi family, swear here. I will protect your home. You. No human feet will dare to step here. If anyone dares to plant the flag of humans here, I will be the first to kill them. So Sandgun. A blunt but extremely cold voice came out. It felt like the temperature of North Whedon had affected me too. Please help me. Finden AI, who was resting at the North Whedon mountaintop outpost, felt a strange sensation when she lit the fire on her cigarette. It wasn't mana, but rather a feeling that passed through her throat. If an ordinary person had felt it, they would have simply ignored it as a mere misperception. But Finden AI was different. With a sense comparable to those of a beast, she quickly grabbed the axe next to her and stood up. Her comrades, who were planning to raid North Whedon while relieving their battle fatigue, were curious and asked, "What's wrong? What is it?" Although Finden AI was the leader of the Gokilsang, they were all like one family, so there was no formality. After all, even if former slaves were concerned with formalities, it would look like a kid imitating an adult. "Something is coming." Exhaling smoke from her cigarette, Finden AI immediately went outside. Her comrades in the outpost followed her, gripping their weapons. Although it was just a feeling, they believed in Finden A's feeling absolutely and followed her. The backup team should be coming soon. Well, just try to stall for time. Did that fool count finally request support? They were members of the Gokilsang who were surprised that Darius Verdi had chosen the citizens of North Whedon over his family. But Finden AI ignored them and looked away. Phew. She pulled the cigarette out of her mouth. Although she had only taken a few sips, she realized that it was not the time to be holding on to it. It's not that. Finden AI, who was twisting his wrist, caught sight of a man walking towards them through the pouring snow. There is only one enemy. Just one? What? One of the unit members, who was holding a sniper rifle, raised his scope to his eyes and shouted, "I really mean it. A man in a coat holding a staff is coming this way by himself. Is he surrendering? Or maybe he's here to negotiate." Although the Gokilsang group members were relieved to hear that it was only one person, Finden AI gripped her axe tightly, more tensed than ever before. And the sniper's report continued, "Oh, he appears to be a wizard. Every time he moves forward, the accumulated snow melts on its own. A noble wizard indeed. Looks like all the Griffin aristocrats know how to show off. For a guy who came here to surrender and negotiate, he's already making a bad first impression." Finden AI showed a sharp reaction to the comrades who still couldn't grasp the situation. "You fools, wake up and get your heads straight. He is the enemy. Yes?" At that moment, a sphere of flames came flying toward them. It was a magic that was neither massive nor threatening. But Finden AI didn't let her guard down and swung her axe to split the fire pit in half. However, her gaze turned towards the fireball she had just split in half. The half that was split merged back together as one. Then, as if bending in midair, it turned its orbit and came flying back towards Finden AI once again. Kaya ha ha ha! With a terrifying scream. Whoosh! The fireballs split apart once more. But as if it hadn't been hit, it merged back together. From that point, large and small balls of fire poured out from the wizard. "Kill. Let's kill him. We're free. FCK. Freedom. Let's quench our thirst with blood and fill our stomachs with flesh. Immigrants. Get the mace. What is this? The magic is speaking. Get into formation. Even if you beat it, ITLL come back. Stand back to back and defend." The fireballs filled with various voices were randomly circling the sky as if they had a will, swallowing the falling snow. Meanwhile, Finden A's bloodshot eyes glared at the wizard in a coat, who strode toward them without pausing. Necromancer. It was the guy's true identity. Finden AI growled as if she were about to tear him apart. Darius Verdi did not even look at her, speaking in a low voice that was as cold as the mountain ranges chill. "Go and eat them up, you evil spirits." Chapter 10. Finden AI. Chapter 10. Finden AI. In the field of necromancy, the most difficult part was none other than communication with the spirits. Unless they were extremely powerful and deeply rooted spirits, ordinary people couldn't see them. Even the necromancers, according to the book, could only perceive a few souls or spirits, because this was the realm of talent, not mana. But I'm not like that. I am different. I could see all spirits, even the most common ones, and although it caused me great pain, I could use them to my advantage. Did mana reside in the spirits? No, they're just mana mass with consciousness. They were just a bunch of talking mana mass, and I converted their mana into magic. Kakik. My body is burning. It's on fire. Die. You will all die. The magic that followed the enemy, burning until its own mana was completely consumed. Even though it's just fireball magic, it is really effective. The fact that magic could have willpower and act on its own was clearly a huge advantage. Even novice magicians could easily handle it. Confusing and defeating their enemies was easy with simple fireballs. But that was not the problem. If it was just the resistance, the giant of the north, Darius, would have taken care of it. They wouldn't even have thought of crossing the mountain range. It was the white wolf that bit the giant's ankle. And that same white wolf was running violently toward me. I clicked my tongue at Finden A's speed, which made me wonder if she had something attached to her feet. She is indeed a monster. She was a woman who was the final boss of a chapter. The fortunate thing was that she still didn't have her weapons or equipment properly adjusted. There's no reward given as a drop. No landing machine, no vampire touch. I expected it, but she was quite different from the Finden AI I knew as the boss. It was shabby with poor equipment. I thought about digging into it, but as I watched her running towards me, I changed my mind. Not yet. Even if she was a far cry from her level, I was still not enough to face her. Darius made a terrible mistake by confronting the monster unknown. I took another soul from my hand and converted the mana it contained into magic. In an instant, it became an ice pick. Bang. Despite this, Finden AI showed no hesitation and smashed the ice while maintaining her speed. Furthermore, she caught the shattered fragments to prevent them from reforming and turned them into dust. The anguished screams of the evil spirit echoed through the air. To say it became magical was, in some ways, equivalent to saying it materialized. It was only natural for them to suffer as well. You're playing with them so amusingly, Necromancer. Finden AI jumped high into the air. Despite the snow falling heavily, she attempted to strike me from above, but with a loud clang. Suddenly, a white godlike figure rushed at her, and Finden A's body spun several times in the air before landing on the ground. KRK cough. Finden AI groaned as she vomited blood. The sandgun who had taken her down with one hit was now standing next to me. We, spirit beings, must not take lives recklessly. I know. Leave the finishing to me. Saying that, I glanced at the Gokilsang members who had adapted to my magic. Beat it. Keep beating it until it falls over and eventually its mana will be exhausted and it will disappear. Damn you son of a bitch. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Do I have to die again? No. I hate it. Ignore the bullshit, it's only magic anyway. Stop talking like a human to a fireball. No. I'm alive. King bastards. You burn the hole inside of McTerry's mouth? How can I kiss my wife? The Gokilsang members reacted quickly after realizing that slashing the fireballs would cause them to vanish due to mana consumption. But they were also angry because of their initial panic, which resulted in the death of their companions. That was what would have happened if Sandgun hadn't appeared. Kawang. As if a sports car had rammed into them, they failed to properly confirm the appearance of Sandgun before their bodies collapsed to the ground. KK, ugh, crack. Unable to even scream properly, they just moaned in pain from the sudden shock and broken bones, rolling in the snow. There was a reason he was full of confidence. I realized that Sandgun was not bluffing when he said he could easily kill 10,000 men single-handedly. The enemies that Darius and the North Whedon soldiers had struggled with so much were wiped out in the blink of an eye. It wasn't an exaggeration, it really happened in the blink of an eye. Sandgun strode majestically among them, his deep blue eyes pressing into mine once more. I hope you don't forget the promise. Of course, the North Whedon Mountains will no longer allow humans. I will make sure of it. Creak. With a single throaty sound, Sandgun disappeared into a crystal of white light, which gradually rose into the sky in contrast to the falling hammer snow. As expected, your endurance is amazing. Finden AI, who was struggling to get up in front of me, even after being hit by the Sandgun's blow, still had the will to fight. She was truly a difficult boss monster to deal with, growing even stronger in moments of crisis. I used one of the trapped evil spirits to create a chair to sit on. I was going to make a simple isostump-like chair. Art. Although I have no hands or feet, I am an artist. But the soul I chose was a bit of an oddball, and he put his own design on the chair, resulting in a fairly elegant ice chair. However, it was not bad. Sitting there with my legs crossed, I spoke to Finden AI, the resistance of the Leaf Kingdom. Finden AI, the leader of the Gokilsang and your allies. In an instant, Finden A's neck straightened and her bloodshot eyes trembled in confusion. How did you? Do I really have to explain that? She may not have realized what had happened, but she knew the outcome was her defeat anyway. Clenching her fists, Finden AI tried to get up with her limp arms. However, she continued to slip and fall in the piled-up snow again and again. Deus Verdi. I'm the second son of the North Whedon Count's family and the younger brother of Darius, the man you ruthlessly destroyed. Deus Verdi. I'm not very well known. Darius' name was so prominent that it was overshadowed. Even in this situation, Finden AI continued thinking of my name. I was convinced that one day she would surely bite and kill, so I clicked my tongue. Finden AI had a beastly side to her, and while she was among the best in the continent in terms of strength, she lacked a cool head. Why do you think I am keeping you alive? Answer me. If you can't answer that much, there's no need to waste any more time. If Finden AI couldn't make a rational decision beyond my expectations, I was ready to kill her without hesitation. However, Finden AI answered, biting her lip. You want something. It's an insufficient answer, but it'll give you a passing grade for it. Before I knew it, my chin was resting on the armrest of the chair created by the evil spirit. This guy might be more useful than I realized. I've heard that the crackdown on the resistance has intensified in the Clark Republic. I'm told it's due to a specialized group called the Relief Unit. Relief Unit. A professional organization was created in the Clark Republic to eliminate resistance such as the Gokilsang and others. Before fighting Finden AI, I could briefly use one of the relief units as an ally, But this guy was quite strong. Relief unit, huh? Isn't it just a group that exterminates pests? The meaning was being used as if it saved citizens and eliminated resistance, but it was just the same as the extermination used to eliminate pests. It was no different than the remedy used to eradicate pests, and the pests in this case were the resistance. My lips twitched with cynicism. It was a part where I could feel, at least in part, how they were treated. For you to be crushed to death here like this is a fitting end that the Republic wants. You bastard. After several attempts to get to her feet, Finden AI finally managed to lean her back against a tree. However, the shaky legs showed no sign of recovery yet. However, if I had intended to do that, I would have already trampled you to death. What's the meaning of all this since earlier? Two things. I raised the index and middle fingers of my right hand. I give you two choices. One was to stay here, buried in the snow, and be crushed to death by me. Like a worm. Finden AI was a popular character because she had her own backstory and was quite good-looking in design. But I didn't need any of that. It was so useless that it could be thrown in the trash. What was important to me was, she made countless players rack their brains, made them challenged several times, and created a level of difficulty that forced them to level up. The strength of Finden AI. The only thing left for you is to be mine. I needed her strength. What? Before she could react properly, I slowly rose from my chair. If you obey my commands, if you follow them, I will give you everything you've ever sought in the kingdom. Finden AI had fled the Clark Republic over the mountain range to the Griffin Kingdom for a variety of reasons. The relief unit was too powerful for her, so her flight began there. They were running low on supplies, had no power, and had no base of operations. So, Finden AI planned to go over to the relatively spacious kingdom, hoping to establish her own base, grew the size of the resistance again in the kingdom, and returned to the Republic. In fact, in the game, she never made it to the Republic, but she did manage in growing size. I will provide you with supplies, I will give you a place to stay, and give you a job to fund it. What are you talking about? It was not difficult to grasp. Even an elementary school student should be able to understand this. I was scouting her. Even the Republic will not be able to attack us, the nobles and margraves of the kingdom. The other members are secondary. Only you. If only you would come under me. I got up from the chair and got down on one knee in front of Finden AI who was leaning against the tree. Our gazes were leveled. I gently stretched out my hand to the startled and flustered woman. I will be the wall that protects you. The younger brother of the Count of North Whedon. The second son of the Verdi family. The disbarred professor of the academy. A damn near insignificant position. However, for a wolf who had lived as a slave, fought in the Revolutionary Army, and needed a moment of rest. It was a position that could serve as a windbreak. 5 years. And after that I will set you free. At that time, whether you go back to the Republic and start a revolution or give up and live, I won't care. By then, I would know if the end of this world was a happy ending, or a fucking tragic one. Therefore, be mine, Finden AI.